What were you seeing before you started the company when you were like, okay, I can actually do this better?
I remember when I was working for my old bosses through different companies that their customers would often approach me and say, David, we don't like your boss, but we like you. And it made me start to think that maybe I could do something better than they did.
You guys run a very efficient business. What would you say are one or two things that you helped drive that efficiency? Because, profit margins where you guys are at is usually unheard of.
I think the first and most important thing is making sure that you understand your numbers and especially your expenses. I think that it's important to keep looking for those relationships where you can get better pricing and you can get better service at the same time.
All right, welcome to another edition of the Superpro podcast. I'm Roland Ligtenberg. I'm also the co-founder of Housecall Pro. Since 2013, we've been on a mission to champion the trades and champion our pro success because the work you do keeps our homes safe, comfortable, and our communities running. Through Housecall Pro, I've had the privilege of supporting hundreds of thousands of pros just like you, empowering you all to achieve more, stress less, and redefine success in our industry. I'm really excited. Today, we've got a special guest, David Audy with Absolutely Electrical. He specializes in electrical services. He's out of Victoria, BC. He is one of our friendly Canadian pros. He's aiming to double his business this year. And so $2.4 million is his goal for 2025. He's got a team of 8 employees. He's got 5 work vans on the road. He's got an incredible, relentless commitment to excellence, and he's got an impressive profit margin that we'll talk about. He does this because he's very efficient. He's built this powerhouse since 2010, and he's got 3 little ones. So I have an 11-month-old now, and I can't even imagine with 3 and building a business in Housecall Pro. That is super wild. David, welcome to the show.
Yes, thanks for having me today.
Oh, great. So tell me the founding story about Absolute Electrical. One, where did the name come from, and what happened in 2019 where you're like, all right, in 2010, this is when we're doing it?
So funny enough, the name wasn't always Absolutely Electrical. It was actually Absolutely Perfect Electrical when I started. And then what happened with that name is that I started to get known by the electrical inspectors as being the guy who's trying to be perfect. And let's just say that they wanted to put me back in my place where I belong and show me that I wasn't that perfect. So when I incorporated the business, I decided to change it to Absolutely Electrical. But you know what? I'm still a perfectionist, and I'm still trying to, deliver the best of the best out there.
Oh yeah, and what made you want to put the best of the best out there? Like, what were you seeing before you started the company when you were like, okay, I can actually do this better, and maybe not absolutely perfect, but definitely better.
Yeah, so I remember when I was working for my old bosses through different companies that their customers would often approach me and say, David, we don't like your boss, but we like you. And it made me start to think that maybe I could do something better than they did. And for me, what I saw in the electrical field, or just even trades in general, was that the barrier of entry for a business was set tremendously low. And, if all you did was answer your phone and show up, you were already above 50% of the competition out there. But, to me, that still wasn't good enough.
Yeah.
What I wanted to show people was that there could be a trade-related company out there that would not only answer the phone, but answer it right away. Never having a customer needing to go to voicemail or also I wanted people to get that speedy, efficient, great service that I couldn't find as a customer trying to hire trade for my own personal projects. There's just a big, I don't know, a big shortage of great service out there in the world nowadays, I find. Uh,
Yeah. And that was your competitive advantage when you started the company, is just seeing, sometimes as an entrepreneur, you see what's not in the world and what you want, and then you go and offer it, which clearly you've done now in spades and done really, really well. You've got a really strong team. You've got huge goals for 2025. How do you get your team to buy into such a big goal? I find that's often really hard for business owners to be able to impress on their employees.
Yeah, I mean, I make it very clear that when we interview and hire new technicians, what kind of company we are and what we stand for.
Mhm.
I don't want people that just want to be average. I don't want people that just want are just doing this because it's a job. I want people that are, have this kind of positive enthusiasm and that, a certain love for what they do. And those are things that you can't teach to people. Um, I can teach you to be an excellent technician, but I can't teach you what your mama should have taught you when you were a baby, to be outgoing, to be positive, to be, have initiative, and those are all the things that I look for in technicians because you can train anybody that has these qualities, but it's much more difficult to train those qualities into people.
Yeah.
So that's what's making the difference for us. Everybody knows that they need to excel. Everybody knows what the goal is. Everybody is rewarded also for, getting us closer to our goals. If I win, you will win as well.
And let's talk about that, because I think that that's sometimes really hard for owners to do, because their employees will see like, oh wow, we're charging this much and I'm getting paid this much. So how do you bridge that gap? How do you have that conversation, and what kinds of frameworks or tips do you have that you do to bridge that gap?
Yeah, I'm not shy to tell the technicians that keeping the doors open on this company costs $100,000 a month, and
Hmm.
that the bill may seem high when you look at the numbers from a customer's perspective or from a technician's perspective, but there's a lot of costs to running a business that people just don't realize exist.
Hmm.
Um, so it's important that these costs be, out there so that, everybody can understand what it takes to run a business. What you see on the invoice is not what I put in my pockets. And I wish it was.
Yeah.
I wish there was no taxes, I wish there was no other costs, but unfortunately that's the reality of running a business.
Yeah, and I think the golden tip there, the golden nugget, is just being transparent with your employees about what it costs beyond just what they get paid and beyond what's on the invoice is super important, so they can understand all the other components that go into driving efficiency. And from like a payment perspective, when the business wins, how do you tell the employees and your technicians how they win? Is there some sort of performance pay or bonus or commission, or how do you do that at Absolute Electrical?
Yeah, so we have a full sheet of bonuses that you can earn with the company. So there's the learning column, which is essentially if you want to get better as a technician, become smarter, get licenses, take courses, I will essentially pay for them. And even if they're not on that sheet and you bring it up to me, I'm happy to sponsor you so that you can become the best that you can be.
Mm.
Um, and also, aside from that, the other side of that bonus sheet is a performance section. So every time we get positive 5-star reviews, you get a certain dollar amount for that. And there's all kinds of other bonuses, like if you just refer, say, a new potential technician to work for us, I will give you a bonus for that. If we there's many categories. I probably have about 20 different categories of bonuses,
Oh, okay. Hmm.
and yeah, the guys know they exist, and it's free money. at the end of the day.
Yeah, no, I like how you've organized it on a sheet. One, which is in terms of developing your employees, which is super important, which is, you're essentially sponsoring their education and sponsoring them becoming a better technician, and you're investing in your people. And on the other end too, when they're investing in the business, they're also seeing the rewards from it too, in the forms of different bonuses and things like that. But having that as a sheet and clearly outlined, I feel like is a really good golden nugget, because oftentimes, if it's random bonuses or random commissions or random things, then they can't really align what they do with day to day. But if that's clear, it's really easy for them to see how their contributions will make a difference, not just for themselves, but the company together too, and their pocketbook.
Yeah, and once again, I said it before, and I'll say it again. If I win, you win. And I want my guys to know that that's the case. We all win together. And I think that's important too, so that we're all aligned in the same vision. And if a technician is better because of the courses they've been able to take, or some of these bonuses are there to also promote efficiency and quality of work, and there's a reason for all these bonuses. Is I want to be able to see the best out of my people. And this is just another way to promote that.
Yeah. I think one thing that's interesting about your business, you're operating on an island, a fairly large island, but an island nonetheless. Tell me about how that impacts your business, or some other things that people might not even consider or think about when they're thinking about operating a business on an island or a limited geographic region.
Yeah, certainly. If you drive in any direction, you're probably going to hit the water pretty quickly. So, there's only so many customers on an island. Thankfully for us, our island, has probably closer to, I would say, 1 million people. But it is a pretty big island, certainly. And, what that means for us is that we've had to diversify our services probably more than most companies, so that we can offer a nice umbrella of different services. And so, we may have less customers, but by being able to offer more services, we can kind of make up for that, I guess, handicap. And yeah, so aside from that, being on an island can lead to other problems like congestion in traffic.
Sure. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And
do you ever go off the island? Do you ever take the ferries off the island to go service people, or you only stick to the island itself?
Yeah, so I've serviced some of the Gulf Islands as well. But I would say that obviously we don't go there for quick service calls. It has to be a job worth going to. And we've considered expanding onto the mainland. But at the end of the day, I still feel there's a lot of untapped potential here, and every day I'm trying to find how I can get to all those people. And
yeah,
even if it's just 1% of the population, that's a lot of customers in a year. So if I can get 10,000 customers in a year, there's plenty of money there. It's just a matter of getting it to them.
Definitely, yeah, and I think too, getting creative and offering other services within the umbrella of things that Absolutely Electrical can do for your home is really important. And I feel like a lot of pros, you can only acquire so many customers, brand new ones. Rather take a look at your existing customer set, and if you can offer them more services, you need less total customers to get the same revenue outcome. You just expand that portfolio, which means sometimes you got to train technicians on new things, or be willing to experiment and add different things to your service line, which also makes sense. But I think don't be afraid of doing that and offering more to your existing customer base versus only specializing in just, I'm making it up, but panel upgrades or EV charger installation and panel upgrades.
And by the way, that's one thing that potential technicians seek us out for, because they really like the variety of work that we offer. You're not always doing exactly the same thing every day, which can get boring or tedious. So by being able to offer a nice umbrella of services, it makes people want to work for us. And I think that's important too for work satisfaction. You get to experience and gain experience in a variety of the electrical field.
Yeah, I think that's super important, and that variety and just constantly learning. Humans want to learn, and so if you're just flipping that same hamburger over and over and over again, at a certain point, you're gonna be like, all right, I don't want to do this anymore. But if you get to run the whole show and do all kinds of fun stuff, you can really keep someone engaged for a long time.
Yeah, and by the way, I should point out that I often tell my employees as well, if you don't learn every day, you're in the wrong place. You should be able to learn something every day, and the day that you stop learning, then I think to me it's time to move on, where you can keep growing as a technician and also as a person.
That's a great motto as well. Tell me a little bit about profit margins. You guys run a very efficient business. What would you say are one or two things that you helped drive that efficiency? Because profit margins where you guys are at is usually unheard of. So what are you doing differently, or what's kind of that secret sauce, that David knows that other people don't know?
Man, we do have a 43% profit margin, which is, from what I hear from various accountants, incredible. In terms of secret sauce, I think there's a variety of things you have to look at. I think the first and most important thing is making sure that you understand your numbers and especially your expenses. I think that it's important to keep looking for those relationships where you can get better pricing and you can get better service at the same time, because you don't want to compromise service and quality of materials, especially if you're trying to, have a very good product out there. So for me, I think the relationships and being able to talk to these people that provide us with all the things that we need to run our business has to be constant, and you need to almost befriend these people so that you can get access to, the best possible pricing, the best possible service. And that's a big part of, I think, where our profit margin comes from. Aside from that, I would say always evaluating if the services that you're using as a business, whether it's your advertising dollars, how efficient they are, and making sure that you're not wasting advertising dollars, which can be very easy to do. I think we've all worked with bad companies, whether that's a bad marketing company just milking you like a cow until you die and just not providing results, or it doesn't matter what it is, really. I mean, I even look at my garbage cans and my recycling facilities. Anything above $1,000, if I can cut the costs in half, it adds up at the end of the year. So
it does. Yeah. Subscription services, everything. When you came across Housecall Pro, this is like 2019. Kind of speak of efficiency. What were you looking at, and how would you describe it? Kind of going from pen and paper to software. What was that moment when you're like, all right, I've been operating this business almost for a decade, and now I'm going to make this big change. Like, what was that moment? What caused it? What were you looking for?
Okay, so obviously we want to be a premium outfit, and I think that you have to represent yourself in a way that is as professional as possible. Not only that, but if you want to charge premium dollars for a premium service, I think you have to be able to show people that you're not just a napkin and pen contractor.
Yeah.
I think you have to go above and beyond. And to me, Housecall Pro was cutting edge. And I researched probably a dozen companies before I settled on Housecall Pro. And really, I really love how Housecall Pro is constantly innovating, constantly developing new features. So much so that they've actually lost me in the shuffle because there's so many things to know now. I can't keep track. But that's the beauty of Housecall Pro, is that it addresses a variety of the challenges that we contractors face and tries to make them smaller problems or easier to manage. And
Mm-hmm.
that's what Housecall Pro has done for me. It's made we were talking about efficiency right there. I mean, it's made me 10 times more efficient. That's what Housecall Pro has done for me.
Yeah, and I think too, earlier on in what you were talking about is when you want to charge a premium price, you need to stand out. And so even simple little things like letting a customer know you're on the way. It sounds like a no-brainer, but like you said in the earlier part of the podcast, it's kind of a low bar that's being set. And so just sending a picture of the technician that's coming with on my way text is like, this mind-blowing experience where all these little things add up, these touch points, so that when it comes time to present a price to the customer, they're like, oh, this price makes sense. I know what I'm paying for because I've already received all this value, all this premium service, all these things that I haven't received for any other bid, for example, right? Or even simple things like you said too in the beginning of the call, which is, hey, you want to make sure when the customer calls, you guys are able to pick up right away, not waiting, leaving voicemails, trying to chase them down, all those types of things. But I think those things are a part of why you've built such a successful business that all add up to be this big thing. And there's no one thing you can just like point at, but that helps you kind of get there.
Yeah, Housecall Pro has bought me back time, and there's nothing more valuable than time as a business owner. I think that if you're able to get your time back, then you're able to put that to good use, which is auditing your costs to know that you're very efficient, making sure that you have a good pricing structure, which makes you highly profitable. And being able to work on the business rather than in the business is what Housecall Pro has done for me. It's really an efficiency that is hard to get with any other service.
Yeah. And speaking of different services, Housecall Pro, we offer not just software, but also different human services. And one of them being coaching. Tell me a little bit about your experience with kind of the coaching that you received through Housecall Pro with some of our coaches. Because I think you've had a couple different coaches over the years, but maybe walk me through what that was like and why you think it's important to kind of get coaching.
You know what? I'm going to give a shout out to my two coaches, Marvin and Iram. Have been great people to learn from, and I think that sense of community, having people that understand what it's like to own a business, is something that I was lacking in my life, and that's what the coaching has done for me. Unfortunately, when you own a business, most people just do not understand what your life is like, and that can even be your spouse. They just don't get it, and your friends, you talk to them about the problems that you're experiencing, but they can't relate. And so it's more than just coaching. It's almost like a good friend that gets you. And the coaching for me, it's made me realize that I thought I knew a lot about business until I didn't. And it actually put a fire under me because, I thought, man, I'm doing well. But then you sit down with these people that own $10 million companies and you realize, maybe I don't know everything. Maybe there's still more to learn here. And so that's what that's done for me.
I think, a common saying is, only take advice from people you trade places with. And so finding good coaches with whom maybe you would trade places with, even if it's just for a day, that you can respect, that have walked in your footsteps, but also really know the things that you're going through because they've gone through them too. Gives you just an extra perspective, an extra lens to really examine your current situation. And so I really like how you've leveraged that too with your business. Obviously, Marvin and Iram are amazing coaches and have built amazing businesses. And so it's nice to have that sense of camaraderie, also the accountability, and then another perspective and a lens to evaluate your business. Because you're in it every single day. And I tell pros this all the time. And you may feel like you know your business, but sometimes it takes zooming out and asking some really tough questions of yourself, or having someone ask them to really kind of come back in and go, oh, I didn't think about that. Or, oh yeah, that makes sense the way that you put it. Like, because if you don't have someone able to kind of challenge you on some of your beliefs about your business, about some of your processes, then it becomes a little harder, because you're operating by yourself. You don't have a lot of other people you can talk to about these problems, not your spouse, not your other friends. They just don't get it. And so having that extra support is super critical about, just to help grow your business.
Yeah, it's almost like a therapy session.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, because you're like, oh, dang it, this happened. Or like, oh, yeah, that happened to me times 10 before too, and then it's like, oh, okay.
And another thing I should point out too is that, sometimes you may think that your problems are big problems, but to somebody who's already experienced those problems, they're tiny little problems. And it's just a matter of perspective. And it's nice to have the perspective from people who have already crossed the bridge that you're trying to cross.
I like the way you put that. Yeah, that's a really good way to put it. What about features? You've been using Housecall Pro since 2019, so you've seen a ton of development, a ton of new features, a ton of new things. What's something that you know now that you're like, oh, dang it, David, why didn't you do this since day one? What is that, like, one feature or that setting, or what's that one thing where you're like, if I would have just done this since day one, I would travel in a time machine and tell my younger self to do this?
I mean, look, Housecall Pro is a great software. It's difficult to pinpoint one feature that just changes everything. I mean, look, I don't know if the coaching is one thing that you could say, yeah, that's it, because to me, that's made a tremendous difference. If we're just talking solely about the software itself, I think being able to present just beautifully crafted estimates has definitely made an impression on my customers. And I know that's a core feature, and it's not a fancy feature, but sometimes just having a nice, crisp looking estimate is how you get your work. And people notice that stuff. Aside from that, I would say pipeline, so that you get an automatic follow up on these estimates. And I think that's, to me, those are the best features right now.
Yeah, and you look, pipeline's a relatively new feature, so we definitely didn't have that in 2019. But as a part of that follow up process, it's critical when you're out there that not only are you offering options, but after you've left that in the customer's hands, that you're following up 3 days later, a week later, a month later, 90 days later, a year later, whatever it happens to be. Because if you're out there doing a couple of these per day, per technician, there's no way you can remember all of this. And there's no way you can follow up on all of that. There's just physically, I think, impossible, because you got other stuff you got to worry about. And so, if you're not using that, think about it, because it'll pay for itself. It'll pay for your Housecall Pro subscription in like one accepted estimate that you forgot about from, whenever it was, 90 days ago or whatever it happens to be. Tell me a little bit about the community and becoming a Superpro. What does it mean to you to be a Superpro and be in that special community?
I mean, certainly being a Superpro is not an easy recognition to achieve. But I've always aimed to be a Superpro, even before I knew Housecall Pro existed, because I wanted to be the best of the best. And, I didn't want to be the biggest company. I wanted to be the best service company. And, there's goals that people aspire to dominate a region or a province, a state, or the country. For me, I always thought, man, I will keep growing only as long as I can maintain that amazing service. And nothing is more important than that in my mind. I built a business to help people. And if I can't help them properly the same way I would help my family, then I think you're not a Superpro. You have to treat people as if they were like members of your family. And being a Superpro for me is just a recognition of all the hard work that I've put in these past 15 years.
I think it's harder to attain than one would think, but once you become it, it seems like you couldn't be it any other way. And at the core of you even starting your business, based upon the values you were mentioning, is clear that you had this goal in mind even beforehand. And so I think for those folks that are listening, being able to offer the customer like transparent pricing, online booking, making sure you've got all the reviews, making sure that you're peer reviewed and people would recommend you. All these things are designed to help you run a more efficient business. So, when you become a super pro, you're in the top 5% of pros of Housecall Pro. And so you get added into our exclusive community there, but you get the network also with other people that are similar minded. And so it's even, I'd say, more exclusive than our existing group, which is the Housecall Pros group, which is just for our users, for our pros, but like a special cohort that's already achieved a lot of the things that everyone's hoping to achieve. So definitely congratulations to you. But I think, having another set of people that you can interface with, talk to, ask questions of, that have that same mindset as you is really important because being a business owner is a lonely job. Especially with the mindset that you have too, treating everybody as if they were your own family. Like, would you want to hire your own business for your own home? Are really good kind of sights to set to go achieve.
Yeah, I mean, look, why be in business if you're just going to be average? There's plenty of those out there already. Yeah, there's a lot of competition out there. If you're going to be average, you're just not going to make it. Most businesses fail within the first few years. They're just not good enough. Mm-hmm. It's you need to have a mindset of excellence.
You've given so many good golden nuggets. Is there any other tip you would give yourself? If you could time travel back to 2010, what would you tell young David Audy? What would you tell him?
You know what? Don't give up, is what I would have said to young David. When you were working 100 hours a week and you didn't know if you could pay your bills, and you didn't know if you could build this business to a point where you can get up in the morning and say, man, I've made it. Just don't give up, because the journey is very difficult. And if you don't love what you do, you won't succeed in business. You have to love what you do. And so for me is don't give up. Keep going. You're going to get there. It's coming. It's just a matter of time, because if you don't give up, you always get what you want.
That's great. I feel like we just got to end the show right there. Thank you all so much for listening. Thank you, David, for jumping on the show, dropping so many great pieces of wisdom to our pros. And if you happen to be listening to the podcast and you're not using Housecall Pro, if you'd like to use Housecall Pro, you can go to housecallpro.com/podcast deal, or you can always text me directly, 858-215-1512. I'm happy to talk to all pros, whether you use Housecall Pro yet or no. Remember, we're here to champion the trades together. So thank you, David, for giving so many great, wonderful words of wisdoms to our listeners today. And stay tuned for another edition of the Superpro podcast coming at you next week. Thanks, David. Bye-bye.
The Superpro podcast is brought to you by Housecall Pro, the leading platform for the home service industry. Housecall Pro streamlines your workflows and simplifies everything from scheduling and dispatching to communication and billing. Unlock the full potential of your home service business with Housecall Pro. Work smarter and more efficiently with streamlined workflows and detailed analytics. Win more business and serve your customers well, every single time. Join more than 40,000 home service pros who have already revolutionized their businesses. Work smarter with streamlined workflows, get organized with centralized information, and scale your business your way. Learn more at housecallpro.com.